Andrew, we'll move on to our second quarterback that we are talking about, and that's Jayden Daniels of Arizona State, and then he transferred to LSU. Heisman winner last season as well. 5 years he's played at college with 12,750 yards, 66.3 completion percentage, 89 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. I mean, the first thing off the bat, you can say about this dude's played a lot of college football, and how attractive is that to NFL scouts and teams?
Yeah, I think that is now becoming what people might be looking at. I think now the NIL's such a big thing, and the transfer portal is so accessible and easy to move from college to college. There's now not the sort of demand to go straight from college to NFL straight away, and you might see a lot more guys sticking around or doing an extra year. And I think that's really valuable. I think when we talk about some of the others like Penix and Nix as well, when we're talking about the amount of snaps that they've taken and the amount of experience that gives them, because they've just seen so much more. I think when you take someone like Trey Lance, who didn't have many snaps at college, it didn't work out. He had some attributes, not the snaps. It's not worked out. So I do think that snap count really does help going forward. And you know, Jayden Daniels as well. When we were over in Germany, Fred, we met with some guys and they were talking about who Seattle might be able to take. And they were talking about those names that were all at the top of the board that everyone, you know, even Quinn Ewers and people like that. And I said, keep your eye on Jayden Daniels. You might be able to snag him. Well, we're not even saying that now because he's on such a good run, and Heisman, he's just done what Joe Burrow kind of did, you know, had his struggles at another college, came to LSU, won a Heisman, and he just shot up boards and managed to showcase himself at the talents that he can do. So, yeah, he's a phenomenal talent.
So if Seattle pull off the spectacular, I think we'll see Seattle grabbing Jayden Daniels. Adam, sort of polar opposite, not polar opposite, but similar attributes with Drake May, but then also strengths and weaknesses. One seems to do one thing better than the other. Does the other thing better than the other? I mean, Jayden Daniels has got some great tape. That's one of the big pros for him coming out. Is he's got some great tape for 2023. He's got great speed. He's played a ton of football. Has got that rushing capability. But what are the negatives you see in Jayden's game?
There's not many. It is a difficult one to find them. When I remember looking at the tape of him and of what I saw, I mean, I felt sometimes his progressions were a little bit slow. He would always go to neighbours first, and then it kind of took a while to move across to the other guys, and so that was one of them. I mean, the only other thing, and I mean, I suppose you could call it a knock on him a little bit, is that he had an exceptional wide receiver corps there. I mean, if you've got Malik Neighbours and Brian Thomas, you're doing pretty well. And so
that's actually what it's so funny, because in my pros for Drake May did it without notable talent. In my cons for Drake Downs is played with great wide receivers. You know,
I mean,
got one quarterback that did it with nobody, and you've got one quarterback that did it with a lot of somebodies. But we draw back to the Joe Burrow thing that Andrew said a moment. I know very different quarterbacks, but Joe had all the talent. We probably played on one of the best college defenses ever as well, and it's still proved to us in the NFL how good he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes to show, you know, if you can, I suppose the logic is, if you can be in a team where you can have that talent around you as well, then it will probably continue into the NFL. You know, you have the potential to do that. For Burrow, obviously, it's worked very well, primarily because he's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins there. So it kind of works really well. Jayden Daniels, dependent on where he goes, a lot of people are mocking him to the Patriots. You've got to suddenly start asking yourself, where is the quality around him? And the answer is there isn't any. So that's where the problem might come in. It's a bit of a difficult one in that respect. But I mean, they are the only, not like I say, I did feel like sometimes the progressions were a bit slow because he was focusing on his main guy. But yeah, he had all the talent in the world around him on that offense. So it'll be interesting to see if he could do that with maybe receivers who weren't quite as good. He may get the chance to prove it next year. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah.
Andrew, one of the things that Adam's actually said before about Jayden Daniels, which I've got in my cards as well, is because of his rushing capability, he gets hit, and he's a little bit, he needs to learn when to take the hits and when to slow it down. I mean, we've seen quarterbacks that have been similar to that in the NFL, and with Lamar and Josh Allen and certain players of that caliber. And I sort of see some of these quarterbacks, and I love Josh Allen, and I love his rushing capability, but he seems to sometimes look for the hits, whereas Lamar seems to escape the hits and is sort of avoidant of that. I suppose one's big and stout and one's a bit more lean and slick, I suppose. Is Jayden leaning towards the Lamar build, but with Josh Allen's sort of mentality? Does he need to sort of clean that aspect of his game up?
You know, he's a really, really tall guy. He's like 6'4", but he's quite slender. A lot of people say it's a big knock on him. Adam's brought it up plenty of times, but Adam's not. I think I'm right in saying you're not worried too much about it because you've seen him out there rushing and taking the hits and things, and it's not bothered him too much at college. But we've seen Anthony Richardson, who's a lot bigger guy, a lot more stronger as well, I'd say, than Daniels, and he was in the blue tent an awful lot at the start of the year until he went out for the whole season. So I do worry for Jayden Daniels in that aspect, that he needs to become better at operating from the pocket and not rely on chaos from outside the pocket and creating magic with his legs, which we know he can do. And that's my real concern with him, especially if he's landing at somewhere like the Patriots, which Adam said as well, where you haven't got the offensive talent, and he has struggled to operate from the pocket consistently. So is it going to become chaotic for him and him not be able to showcase the full extent of his talents that he did at LSU with the wide receivers there? So a little bit on the slender side. So I think when he gets to the NFL level, he can't rely on it as much as he did with at college. So that would be my take on it.
For new sort of viewers and listeners of college football, the Jayden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy, which is basically the college equivalent, college football trophy for the best player in all of college football. Adam, I asked this question knowing what your answer will be, but it's for really the listeners that aren't as au fait with college. How much does winning that Heisman move the needle when you're going into these drafts?
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably think it's a good thing to win.
Well, yeah, any trophy's a nice trophy.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing to win, I'll give you that. I mean, to a certain degree, you kind of like, there's only 2 quarterbacks in this draft that have won the Heisman Trophy. So in a way, it does kind of elevate Daniels up to a level sort of filled with Caleb Williams in that respect. So I think there is that argument that he's obviously done incredibly well in order to do it. Again, I would say the year he's done it, he had 2 very good wide receivers to help him out there. So I think there probably is an element of, well, he must have been good because he's won it. But I don't know with teams exactly how teams would think about it. I think that whether they will just go through their normal scouting, look at the tape and be like, we either like him or we don't, whether it doesn't matter if he's won, whatever. I don't know. I don't know how they would think.